intend to do as well. So a couple of things. So we have attendance here. So each time I will drop this spreadsheet in the chat. And if you can just go to it and let me know if you cannot edit it. You just put your name, find some real estate in the name column, put your name there, and just put an X besides October 8th. And if I see, you know, 3 X's, then you good. Let's see, someone is, I'm just gonna. So while people do that, this will be recorded. I'm only going to put the intro in the Stoa YouTube page for the first session, but all the sessions are going to be recorded, and only Edwin's breakout room will be recorded. So just be cognizant of that. I think Edwin's going to use it for his purposes. He might put it on his YouTube channel, so he can speak more on that. That being said, and if there's some Edwin empathy circle facilitators in this room as well. I think Dan Felbit is one. Just raise your hand in that kind of the participant section, so I'm aware of it, because I'm going to put people, or maybe if you can kind of just manually do it on the, not manually do it, or indicate it somehow on your profile or your name, or rename your name like empathy circle trainer. So when I put people in breakout rooms, I know what to do or where to put you. So that being said, I'm going to hand over to Edwin now. And if I forgot anything, I'm sure I'll jump in. So Edwin, thank you so much for being here at the Stoa to delivering these empathy circle training.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. We've done one empathy cafe before, and a couple other circles with others of your friends. So it's great to connect with you again. Also to do this series. What we're doing here is the empathy circle process, which is well, I'll give a bit of a introduction video of how to do that, and I'll also give Peter some time to divide people into groups of 5. And the empathy circle is a really simple mutual listening process where one person speaks and the other kind of reflects back what they're hearing. And I find it one of the most effective listening skill and empathy skill building practices there is. It's a really effective first step gateway practice. And since this group is about Memetic, if I can pronounce that word, mediation, I would say it's one of the most foundational practices in mediation. We have, some of our facilitators here who we do conflict mediation. We've been out with the political left and political right out here in Berkeley when they come and have their street fights. We have this empathy tent that we set up, and we offer listening to both sides and try to bring both sides into an empathic dialogue. And it's really quite effective. And hopefully you had a chance to see the intro video of how to do it. There's, the sort of the benefits of the empathy circle practice. Like to have as much of that be done, before the circle, so we have more time to get right into the practice of it. So is everybody, just want to be sure everybody is putting, if you're a facilitator, that you've got you've indicated that, like Zach, for example, you're a facilitator. I don't think there's no way to see that you're a facilitator. You need to add that to your name. And I think that's like what, in the upper right-hand corner, how do you change your names, just so that Peter can, we want to have 5 people in a circle, in an empathy circle, and then 1 facilitator in each. And then this time around, we're going to be having 4 of these. So this first time around, you'll kind of be learning the process, but then kind of next week and the week after, you'll already know how to do it. So we won't need as many facilitators that, just kind of support everyone. So,
Edwin,
yeah.
Just, is it 5 in total and 1 facilitator per room?
1 facilitator, 4 participants.
Okay, cool.
So, yeah, hopefully that works out. We've got 40 people, so we're talking about 8 rooms. There might be there might end up with some people that will just have to sort of wing it with the process. So, let me know how that works out, Peter, in terms of the sorting. I know it's quite a job to sort everybody into those rooms. So let's see what we can do next. Is actually, can you give me share screen permissions, or you have to?
You should have it. You're a
should?
co-host. Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
I'm sharing my sound still. Okay, there you go. You should do it.
Okay. Oh, there it is. All right, great. So I'm going to just start off by showing the how to do the empathy circle. And it's about 6 minutes. It's sort of the minimal instructions. And so let me just set that up and share. Okay, there we go. I'm Edwin Rutch, founding director of the Center for Building a Culture of Empathy. I'd like to welcome you to this short presentation on how to take part in a basic empathy circle. So next, let's look at the step-by-step how to take part. An empathy circle starts with 2 to 7 participants. Here on the screen, we have 4 participants, which I find is an ideal number. There are 4 basic roles, and the roles rotate among the participants as the empathy circle unfolds. 1, the speaker, is the first person to speak. 2 is active listener who actively listens to the speaker. There's the silent listeners, they quietly observe and witness. And the facilitator who organizes, schedules, and hosts the circle. They also do the timekeeping, and they have some experience with the process and help keep participants in the process. However, everyone has the responsibility to hold the process and the practice. So to begin with, the facilitator will start the empathy circle. They welcome the participants. They lead introductions if the participants don't know each other. The facilitator invites participants to give short introductions, for example, their name, where they're from, and something personal about themselves. The facilitator then reviews the empathy circle process to remind everyone how it works. They announce the discussion topic, if there is one. Even if there is a topic, you can always talk about what is alive for you. That is what is on your mind in the moment. And 5, they set the speaker time limits, perhaps 5 minutes, for example. And the facilitator then asks who would like to start to be the first speaker. So at that point, the participant volunteers to be the first speaker. As speaker, you select who will be your active listener, and you can select anyone that you want. You speak about the topic given or whatever is alive for you. And so you'll speak a bit until you have maybe expressed an idea or two, and then you want to pause to give the active listener a chance to recap what they understand that you are saying and feeling. If you say too much, the listener may have difficulty in reflecting it. As the active listener, you are listening to the speaker to get an understanding of what they're saying and what is important to them. You are giving them your full attention as a supportive companion on their inner journey and exploration. When the speaker pauses, you recap your understanding of what they said and how they feel by reflecting the essence of that in your own words. You can summarize, paraphrase, or even say the speaker's words back to them. Even though you may have a strong impulse to respond with your own ideas, judgments, analysis, advice, and sympathy, or even questions, resist the impulse to do so because these common responses block the speaker from moving along their internal journey. You'll be able to say whatever you want when it is your turn to be the speaker. If you don't reflect the understanding to the speaker's satisfaction, they can always say it again. Then as speaker, you check, do you feel understood to your satisfaction? If you do not feel understood, you can say it again, perhaps in different words. If you do feel understood, continue sharing. Again, after speaking a bit, pause to give your active listener a chance to recap their understanding of what you said. As the active listener, you again share your understanding of what the speaker said and meant. the cycle of speaking and reflecting continues until you as the speaker do not have anything else you'd like to say, or until you get a signal from the timekeeper. If you get a signal from the timekeeper, then finish up what you're saying in a sentence or two. After you get a final reflection, you can end your turn by saying something like, "I feel fully heard," or something like that to indicate you are done with your speaking turn. At that point, the roles then rotate. The active listener becomes the speaker. The person they select becomes the new active listener. For everyone having equal time, it is good to select someone that hasn't spoken lately, but it is your choice. The others in the circle become the silent listeners. This process of taking turns in speaking and active listening continues for whatever time is allotted for the empathy circle. And this was just a very short introduction. The best way to learn the practice is taking part and doing it. There is more in-depth material on taking part in an empathy circle and facilitating one at empathycircle.com. Thank you for listening. Okay, so that's sort of the minimal instructions. If you go to empathycircle.com, there's a section on how to, for if you weren't able to see it before this meeting, you can see it before the next one. There's a 9-minute how-to video as well as a 24-minute video. And so how are we doing with the breakout rooms? Does everything look okay, Peter?
Yep, everything's good. One has 4. I'll jump into breakout room 7 in a moment. So if you're there, just hold on. And then Dan, I'm going to throw you in breakout room 8 in a moment as well. And the theme.
Yes,
Edwin.
the topic. I was going to ask you. You're the theme master here.
The theme master says the theme for today will be, how are we personally relating to the upcoming elections? So how are we personally relating to the upcoming elections? Could be on an emotional level, could be an intellectual level, whatever it is.
And with the empathy circle, we have a topic, but as mentioned, you also can talk about whatever's alive for you, meaning, you know, whatever is sort of on your mind at the moment. If you're having relationship problems or something, you're welcome to talk about that or whatever, you know. So we want to keep that sort of that open. So we're going to have, for the facilitators, we'll have 5-minute turns. And we'll start off as a facilitator. Hopefully you're identified as the facilitator, so you'll know in each group who is the facilitator. So they will start off, just lead everyone into a quick introduction, your name and location, and then get, you know, right into the process. And so we'll go till 20 before the end, which is, what does that give us, about an hour and 10 minutes? Is that right? Or? And then at 20 till the end, we'll come back. Peter will bring us back into the full group. And then we'll do a quick debrief. Everyone will get like 30 seconds. We'll just go around, you know, how was that experience for you? So I think, am I leaving anything out? Lou, just want to, anything, am I leaving anything out? I always forget something. Oh, you're muted. Does everybody have unmute permissions?
No, they don't. Now they do.
Hi, thanks, Edwin. No, I have nothing to add. You did a great intro.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Well, I think we're ready to go. It's really, we want to spend as little time, you know, kind of, you know, talking about it, but more time doing it. So let's get into the process and do it.
Just one question. I missed that. When do I bring them back in? To
20 minutes to the end. So we'll have 20 minutes. Since we have almost 40 people, that'll give us 30 seconds per, if we go around, get a 30-second debrief from each person.
So is that 2:10? We're coming back at 2:10?
It depends on your time zone.
Right,
So,
Pacific time?
yes, Pacific.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So I'll put everyone in breakout rooms now. If you don't have a facilitator there, just hold tight because I'm just putting people in manually.
And remember, the one I'm in, it will be recorded. The others won't. Okay, great. Welcome. So let's begin. You get, oh, I forgot to gotta bring up a stopwatch here. Forgot to do that. Let me just. Stop. Watch. Okay. So maybe we can just do a quick round, your name and where you're from. As you heard, I'm Edwin Reich. I'm from the San Francisco Bay Area. Evan, do you want a quick intro?
Sure. My name's Evan. I am originally from Tallahassee, Florida, currently living in Southeast Michigan.
Okay. And Kelly?
Hello. I'm Kelly. I'm on the East Coast in a medium-sized city in the Southeast. That's what was there another thing?
That was
Name
it.
and
That's a
location?
good start.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll
I
the
like my
rest will come up.
privacy.
You like your privacy?
Oh, hi.
Hi, H-O-C, Huckley?
Hawk.
You want just where you're from, name and where you're from?
Hello. I'm Hockley. I live around the New York area, and my parents are from Vietnam. Yeah.
Okay. And we have Key, is that, oh, Kelly.
No, it's Key. That's her nickname. She's typically on here. I think it's the same Key.
Okay, Key, do you want to just
Yeah.
introduce yourself?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Hi.
Hi. Yeah, my name is Keithana. It's also Key for short as a nickname, as Hawk said. Thank you. A question, but does the empathy circle need to be recorded?
This one, the one I'm in, we wanted one recording. So yeah, we did want one recording. So this one does need to be recorded. If you're uncomfortable with that, you might have to drop out, or I don't know if there's any way to get, if you move back, if you leave the room, go to the main room, leave the room, then maybe Peter can move you into another room.
I'm happy to be in the room. Is it okay if I keep my video
Oh,
off?
sure, no problem.
Oh, there was another question. Is it okay for my video to be turned off?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, sure. So who would like to start? The topic was about how do you feel about the elections, and maybe someone can speak to me just so I can model it, and I'll keep time. And I have when the time is up, when your 5 minutes is up, I'll just hold that up just to indicate that the time is up. So who would like to start?
I guess I'll start.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Hockley. I guess this might go on YouTube. The background is Nighthawk Films, my logo. Anyway, short pitch. It's been an interesting time period. I'm glad for Zoom because in the past 5 years, without a healing group to talk about this stuff, I just had to bottle it up. And in Asian culture, politics is the thing we never discuss. So this has been healing. In terms of sleep schedule, I've had to stay up all night and just learn on the computer or whatever and watch the house while mom and dad work. I don't
Okay,
have.
can you pause? I'll just reflect back. Let me just reflect back. So what I'm hearing is you really appreciate Zoom, and that instead of having everything bottled up, you've had a chance to be able to express yourself, and you really appreciate that. And especially within Asian cultures really don't really talk about politics or aren't so open. And so, yes, that's what I heard so far.
Thank you. 2018, 2019, I was staying at shelters, men's shelters, because I felt safer. There were security guards, and I was around men, and we could, it was more like a tribe. Yeah, I was doing a homeless thing, but also protesting, but I had a tribe of safety, whereas at my house, it's mostly me watching the house. So it's more isolated, and this is very healing. Thank you.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that you had been staying in men's shelter because you found that safe, and then now you're staying at home, and that you find that rather isolating, and you're actually finding these kind of conversations as being healing.
I wish Zoom was around when I was a kid, especially 10 years ago when I started first learning to date. this would have been, I would have way more knowledge than just brute force or just trial and error, and would have avoided a lot of mistakes. So this is healing. Thank you.
Yeah, so you're really just really iterating that this is a healing process, and you wish you would have had this much earlier in your life, because it would have been really been constructive, helpful for you.
Mm-hmm.
So is there more? You still have almost 2.5 minutes.
Oh, okay. I attended Internations yesterday, and that was cool. It's basically a Zoom group, but like with almost 100 people around the world. And we chatted from almost like 1 p.m. all the way till like 7 p.m. That's the longest Zoom group, and that was really fun.
So there's this international Zoom group that I'm hearing is just had really long discussions. It was just a lot of fun. You just really enjoyed yourself.
Yeah, and people around the world were concerned what was happening in America, and then it was good to hear like what was happening in London and Italy regarding COVID and stuff. Yeah, it was healing.
Yeah, so again, you're just reiterating how healing it is to hear, the different views of people from around the world about COVID, about the elections, etc.
I wish you were my parents when I was a kid. Mom and Dad just shut off everything. Thank you.
Yeah, I kind of would really wish that I was your parent, because I'm listening to you and hearing you, and your parents would just shut down, and it sounds like it was kind of frustrating. So you would have really appreciated, parents that are sort of really listening to you.
But they were the product of the Vietnam War and slavery in Vietnam from the French and all that madness. So I'm glad my parents were able to grow, especially through Buddhism and stuff.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is you really have some understanding of what they went through, and that they were able to grow, and some appreciation for their growth through Buddhism.
Okay. This is amazing. So this is what Thich Nhat Hanh does. This is how Stephen Colbert and Patrick Bet-David become great interviewers. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you're having sort of a real realization about how empathic listening works, and how maybe Thich Nhat Hanh uses it and others use it. It sounds like you're experiencing it now and really appreciating it.
Yeah, divorces and relationships wouldn't break up if people knew this. Wow, thank you.
Yeah, so you really see the power of this, how it would kind of help people from getting divorced and breakups and conflict. And yeah, so really, I'm hearing a real appreciation. You have 16 seconds.
This is how we improve the school system. Thank you.
Yeah, so you're seeing that this is how you improve relationships, this listening, and also even the school system could be improved, and that's your time. So, okay, great. Then I'll speak to Kelly. Okay. I'm starting the clock. So you're muted, just so you know. So I wanted to get back to the topic about the election. So we're, Peter had said our topic, even though we can talk about anything we want. So it's really, it's quite amazing that Trump now got COVID, at this stage of the election. So it's just so much kind of going on. It's kind of amazing. Yeah. You just want to reflect that?
Yeah, I feel like this election is like a bad season of sports.
So just a note, you're just trying to reflect back what you heard me say. It's like you're trying to avoid saying your own story. Just what did you hear me say? Just reflecting that back.
Oh, I thought I was doing what Hawk just did.
Right. No, what it goes is that Hawk spoke to me, and then I reflected, then I speak to you, you'll reflect, and then once you've reflected me, then you'll select someone that you can say anything you want. Yeah, it's a learning process.
It seemed confusing. I was like, why are you leading me in? Okay, I'm sorry.
Sure.
So yeah, you're saying that you're astounded, or there's an element of just craziness that in the midst of all the election stuff, now Trump, it turns out, has COVID.
Yeah. And what I would really like, I thought the debates were like a disaster. What I would really like to see is an empathy circle, Biden and Trump. I would have liked to have them do an empathy circle like this, And I think it would have been transformational for the whole country. So because I see these debates as just a disaster, unproductive disasters.
So yeah, I'm hearing your frustration and maybe like a sort of sadness with how unproductive the election debates have been, and how you have an awareness of like a better possible way of doing things that you've seen or you think would work a lot better and be transformational.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, in the introduction, there's we actually have this empathy tent. We have a group of us. We have these empathy T-shirts, and before COVID, we would take those to when the political right and left would battle it out in Berkeley and other places, and we would set that tent up and try to bring both sides together into the circle. We'd offer listening to each side and try to have them sort of dialogue with each other. And I think that's sort of what we're doing here is the core of effective mediation. I appreciate Hawk really picking that up so quickly. He really very quickly just saw the importance of what we're doing here.
So I'm hearing that you have a sense of past experience seeing the effectiveness of this empathy circling, especially in like the political context at Berkeley. And so that's sort of like supporting your notion that that would be a really effective mode for the debates. And also even just in this group, it's already shown to be effective with your section with Hawk.
Yeah, that Hawk understood it. Yeah, that was it, that he grasped it. I appreciate that, grasping the importance of it.
So yeah, not only did it like work, but he understood at the conceptual level how valuable it was.
Yeah, I feel fully heard. So it's your turn to select whoever you like.
So now I select someone to listen to me.
Right, and you get 5 minutes.
Okay. How about Key?
Hello, Kelly.
Hi. Yeah, I guess I already shot my first shot with when I thought it was my turn, but with the election, my feeling about it is that it's like a bad season of sports, but for some reason people think politics is like more real than sports, and they don't see how narrative driven it is. And
So I'm hearing that politics.
your volume's really low for me.
Yeah, can you turn up your volume or get really close to the mic? Or
Can you hear me better now?
oh,
That's better.
I'm hearing that you feel that the politics has been very narrative, and that there was a note at the beginning about shot my first shot, really about commenting on the way that it's like a sport.
Well, I was saying I already said what I was feeling earlier because I thought it was my turn, and so I just repeated what I had said, which was about it being like a bad season of sports. But yeah, I guess in that I mean that in the same sense that people like look at sports and say like, oh, like that's just like entertainment. They fail to see that the political narrative is largely not necessarily entertainment, but captive content consumption, and that the questions and discourse at the presidential politics level is not really the critical. It's like we're not those are not the questions that need to be asked, and those are not the people who are going to solve the problems, in the immediate It just seems to me that way anyway.
So you're saying that the people on the during the debates and the questions that are being asked, they're not the people that would solve the problems. You also mentioned that it's like a bad season of sports, and how the politics is sorry. I'm enjoying the fact that the active listening is something that I'm practicing. So I have to ask for repetition.
No, you just you just say as much as you can. If Kelly doesn't feel heard, he'll just say it
Thanks.
again or add to it. Yeah. Did she hear you? And is there more?
I think that we don't, or for me, I don't feel that I have to put my worldview in someone else. So I feel like to a certain extent, you heard me, but like there's layers of meaning in what I said that I don't think we share. And so I don't think I don't know how to put that in your head and to be able to say that, you heard me, but so I don't know, maybe I'm subverting the process, but.
So you're wondering if you're subverting the process because you think that we don't share the same worldviews, and so you're wondering if it's like the right kind of process that we're going through?
Yeah, well, it's not so much wondering if I don't think, for me, I don't feel it's necessary. So like the 2 times ago when you repeated, there was like certain things, like levels of nuance where I could tell you weren't hearing me because we speak and say so much more than we mean so much more than we say. And I could tell that some of the things I meant, I would have to go into great detail to sort of convey. So I didn't want to, I was saying, I don't know if this process is like, I'm supposed to do that, but in general, I don't feel in discourse, I feel like that's not productive to try and do that. So given that, I felt like you more or less were reflecting something that resembled my feelings in a certain way. I don't know if I'm coming across.
Yeah, you're saying that with the way that I reflected back to you, it almost as if it was really relating to the nuances that you were speaking to in the what you were speaking to, and so in that you wonder that if this process needs to have the ability to go into discourse, which means that going into detail about what it is that the layers of meaning and nuance means to you.
I didn't really follow that, so I'm not sure.
So
Well, just say it again. She didn't understand. You felt like she didn't quite understand you, so you just say it again in maybe different words and whatever is up for you, Kelly.
Well, what's coming up for me is like I started a recursion loop that is turning into a memory leak, and so it's like I'm fine just saying like let's just Control Alt Delete, and I'm cool with that. But I don't know if that's if that's good for the facilitated process.
I can reflect that. So you said that it sounds like there was a recursion loop and then a memory leak, and to be honest, that reflects what happened during active listening. So you're okay with Control Alt Deleting is what you said.
Yeah, I'm cool with that. So I guess I feel heard, is what I say. Oh, cool. Good timing.
Yeah, I was about to get to the clock. So, yeah. Okay, great, thanks. So Keith, it's your turn to select. Maybe Evan, who hasn't spoken yet, to kind of give everyone attention.
Hello, Evan.
If you could speak louder, it's like at the very beginning, your voice is low and then it gets a bit louder. So
Hello. Can you hear me now?
right now it's soft again, it's low.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we do hear you, but yeah, just give it a try. Go ahead. So
Okay. Is it really low or is it okay right now? I'm
now
Just
it's
became
okay.
okay.
Yeah.
okay, cool. So right now I'm at home. Politics has been a topic because of the theme set. I was told by my family about Trump having corona. I didn't watch a lot of the debates. I haven't been participating in political conversations too deeply. On this side of things, like on my side of things, I've really just been focusing on work. And so I'm excited about having more time to devote to work, as well as to the future of what I would like to solve problems in or contribute to. And my friend and I are starting, well, we are part of an accelerator and we are working on an idea together. And that's how my morning started. So that I was really glad that we were doing that, and we're getting like really cool progress. And
You may
working
want to
towards-
pause there to give
Sure.
Evan some time to reflect back.
So what I'm hearing you saying is that you have been somewhat disconnected from the political process and discussion thereof. You mentioned that you heard that Trump had contracted COVID from, I think, your parents, and that really where your mind has been for the past bit has been on your work, specifically your involvement with an accelerator. I assume here you mean a startup accelerator on a thing you and your friend are trying to create.
Correct. Yeah, not wrong there. Cool. So that's what's happened so far. And I'm really, really conscious of my voice. So there's that. Played the glass bead game yesterday, and that was fun. Talked about humans as a theme, and talked about utopia with the EU as a theme. So that was neat, and to be able to reflect on those topics was fun, and to see how other people also reflect on those topics was also fun and helped me understand those topics even more. And I'm excited to be able to, it was inspiring and continues to be inspiring for my personal writing process.
So I heard you first comment on that you were very conscious of your own voice, and then you shared that you had participated in the glass bead game yesterday, and that your topics were utopia with the EU, good place, and humans, and that glass bead game playing process was very inspiring for you. You enjoyed the opportunity to discuss those issues, and that it was particularly helpful for your personal writing process.
Correct. Yeah. Thank you for listening. I am appreciative of Hawk saying healing a bunch of times. So I'll say that. And I'm also appreciative of Kelly bringing up very interesting pieces about politics as well. And I'm also appreciative of you, Evan, saying, like, because I heard that myself saying, I heard it from family and you said parents, and that is correct. So, like, with all that said, there is a appreciation for the process of empathy circling.
So I'm hearing you say that you have some appreciation you're feeling. Specifically, you appreciated Hawk's focus on healing, and also something that Kelly said that I'm having a hard time placing exactly what you appreciated. It went right in one ear and out the other, and that I was right about who you heard the news on Trump from, and that you're very appreciative in general of this empathy circle process.
Yeah, another piece, I don't know how much time I have, but
30 seconds.
cool. So I don't know if people have watched Big Brother. I haven't, but I definitely have been inspired by that recently. I won't go into why, but I enjoy this process of also being recorded and feeling like in life, you know, being really aware of the words being used and the actions being taken, and of the people that you're influencing and being influenced by. So it's a fun learning process. So hopefully it does help all of the areas that Hawk mentioned, including schools as well, to learn better.
So do I reflect that as well?
Yeah, you gave your final reflection, then that'll be her turn. Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned Big Brother, which I have absolutely no context, know what the referent of that is, other than 1984, which didn't feel right. But you were then going on to talk about how it, in some sense, led you to be more aware of the web of causality, like your effects on other people through your actions, and also the influences that are happening to you, and that you appreciated that and found that useful.
Okay, now you choose, Evan, who you want to speak to.
All right, I will talk to, I was going to pick Hawk, but he appears to be gone, so I guess I'll pick you.
Okay, listening.
All right, so the election. There's no way for me to compress my feelings and thoughts on the election into 5 minutes, let alone 5 hours. So I guess I'll have to be brief. So this election strikes me as a really kind of scary time. And specifically what I mean by this is the thought that keeps going through my head in various variations is that this is really the election where we get to see whether or not the pre-existing American political process can survive the advent of networked tribalism.
So what I'm hearing is this is sort of a scary election, and you see it as sort of a test. If the process, if the United States can really handle tribalism, networked tribalism,
Yep.
It's sort of a stress test of the system.
Yeah, correct. And so the scary part is not that the stress test exists so much as that we seem to be failing it pretty spectacularly. And you know, it's like trying to think of a good analogy here. Imagining words fail me here, but we are all, I think, to some extent, these biologically programmed robots, and most of us spend most of our time executing code that we did not write and did not consent to being installed in our brains. And so the advent of the internet has allowed for extremely virulent little memetic viruses or bits of code to be transmitted very fast, almost instantaneously, to as many people as have internet access in this country. And they seem to be very successfully colonizing people's brains and causing people to act in ways which are ill-considered from almost any value system. And that just seems to be getting worse. So that's my kind of concern about this election and the stress test.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is your concern about the stress test is that there's all these bits of, you see people as sort of robots or computers, and there's these bits of codes that are getting out there and sort of spreading, and they're codes, based on, not thinking of maybe the well-being of everyone. That are sort of problematic, sort of almost viruses, and that they're replicating very quickly. And that's kind of scary for you if the system can, hold up against that.
Yeah, that sounds right. And I mean, I think to go a little bit deeper with that, the really sort of scary part, disturbing part is that if you look back even, 20 years or further back, there were any number of really, intense and at the time kind of scary conflicts between different political tribes or coalitions. And that's nothing new. But those coalitions and tribes did, in fact, seem to have fundamental values that they based their positions on and that were driving them. And so now, for example, you see people on every side of the political spectrum acting in ways which are deeply inconsistent with the principles that they claim to hold, whether we're talking left, right, center, whatever. And at least to my view, this happens a lot more than it used to. There's a sort of discarding of one's own ethics or fundamental values in favor of political expediency that's become quite intense.
Okay, so what I'm hearing there is you see these different tribes, and previously they had sort of more of a shared values between them. And now it seems to be more, you're saying political expediency is just maybe about power, but just for that expediency, and there's not that shared space, shared values. And
so actually that was a slightly different take than what I intended to say. What I was getting at is that in the past, you had tribes with very different values, right? The left and the right had important and meaningful differences in their value systems and their fundamental groundings of ethics. But they, at least most of the time, seemed to operate from their value systems, respectively, right? Whereas now, both on the left and the right, and however many other tribes you want to identify, you see so many people acting in ways which are not consistent with their own value system. Call it moral hypocrisy, if you will, and it's not limited or even centered on any one tribe. Everything is being thrown out the window in this sort of, race to the bottom where the only goal is power.
Okay, so it's like you had the different tribes, they have their value system, their own values, and they would operate from their values, even if the values weren't the same as other groups, but they would have sort of that integrity. And now that's kind of been thrown out just for the value of power. And that was the time too, if that.
Yeah, I feel heard.
Okay, cool. I'll speak to Hawk then.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm speaking to you, so you just reflect back. Did you have something important, something to say, or you had your fingers like, is a technical point, or are you ready to reflect?
I was just looking at Big Brother, and apparently it's some like reality show where how people.
Oh, okay. Well, let's hold off on that because it's whoever is speaking has the floor. So we don't want to interrupt them for that. So the first thing I will say, building on what Evan is saying, that I think what we are doing right now with the mutual empathic listening is what can bridge the divides between the tribes.
So you're discussing about how Evan is discussing that there's a fight between these tribes, how to bridge that and stop their fighting.
And that this empathy circle process is sort of the bridge for bridging those divides.
And this empathy circle is a process for connecting people, yeah.
Yeah, because what happens is between those tribes is one side doesn't feel heard and understood by the other, and then they start lashing back. Then the other side doesn't feel like they're heard by the other, and they lash back. and it turns into just that power struggle. And if you can slow things down and make sure each side feels heard before, you know, they listen to the other side, it's really sort of the magic formula to sort of bridging those divides.
So you're saying that the more that both sides fight, the more aggressive it becomes, and then it's harder to listen. And the idea is to stop the fighting and to help them listen to each other.
Yeah, and that's what we're doing here, right? If you, like you really picked up on it, that if you have a family and all the family and you know, family members sit down, they have like a family empathy circle, so everyone gets heard. It can really help heal, you know, the family group, because of all the, you know, family members don't feel heard and understood by other family members, and it just has all this tension and stress and stuff that kind of builds up, and fighting and stuff.
And you're saying how it's important that families learn this technique so that they stop fighting and take care of each other. I experienced this in San Francisco at a shelter. It's cool.
Yeah. So yeah. So that's the family. The school is the same way. You know, if you can bring students together to have this, and then to bring people in opposing, you know, camps together. And even people within the same groups are kind of dysfunctional as well. Get people on the left or on the right, that's kind of dysfunctional within they don't listen to each other either within the groups to a large extent either, so.
Yeah, I'm hearing you're saying that this is very healing for families, schools, and even within political groups, because they don't listen to each other. Like, just like how Bernie and Hillary had a breakdown in 2016. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like they're all at each other's throats. So what we're trying to do is sort of spread this practice, you know, get people trained in it, you know, comfortable with it, be able to facilitate. And then what I hope to do once COVID is over is we'll go occupy the park in front of the White House, and we'll demand that whoever's president at that time does an empathy circle with us, or we go onto the Capitol Mall and we demand that, you know, the Republicans and Democrats have empathy circles between each other. You know, so we're kind of building the grassroots, you know, movement now.
So I hear that you're saying that this is great training for everybody, and then this can help change political movements. This is very similar to the teachings of Dr. King and Thich Nhat Hanh, to where the empathy comes first before the goal.
Yeah, I didn't say that about Thich Nhat Hanh or about King, so I didn't say that. But I will say that Kingian nonviolence, as I understand it, first says you see a problem, then you go try to talk to the people who have some power about the problem. And you talk about the city officials. You say, hey, we'd like to talk about this. And they'll say, no, we don't want to talk with you, which is typical, right? And then Kingian nonviolence is a set of tools to how do you put pressure on those people in power to come to the table and have a dialogue. So it starts with an invitation to dialogue, and it ends in a dialogue to solve problems. And I think King needed to do empathy circles on top of it. I think that would have been a good addition to his strategy.
So I hear that you're saying you didn't add Dr. King at first. That was on me, but it was a nice conversation to talk about to change the government, and how Dr. King adding empathy circles would help his peace movements.
Yeah, and that he's about dialogue. His thing was about dialogue, so I agreed with that. So with that, I feel fully heard. Yeah, so it's your turn.
Me or?
You select who you want to speak to.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah, I want to chat with Evan. No, wait, 1 second. 1 second. Gallery. Yeah, Evan. Yeah. Hi. Yeah, you wanted to chat with me, but my mic was off, and that's why I raised my finger. But anyway, I like your idea how you discussed kind of like there's like a virus, like a digital virus. I was thinking like the Matrix, how Agent Smith infects everybody with this toxic energy. Yeah.
So I'm hearing that you are sort of riffing off of what I spoke about before, and that it called to mind for you an analogy from the Matrix where Agent Smith in the later movies becomes able to infect other people with a toxic energy virus.
Yeah, and then that was confusing as a kid because when I didn't really I played the video game Path of Neo first before I saw Revolutions, and the alternate ending in the video game was Neo fighting a giant Agent Smith, whereas in the movie he sacrifices himself, like a Christ consciousness. Yeah.
So I'm hearing that you found it confusing growing up because you encountered the Matrix universe out of order, so to speak, and and that you were you had played a video game which had a different ending for Neo and Agent Smith than the one that was actually shown in the movie, where Neo becomes a sort of cosmic Christ consciousness.
Mm-hmm. And then around like 2013, 14, I looked up like different YouTube videos where people have different Matrix theories and interpretations, and it was really healing. That that the idea is that no matter the level of God consciousness or superstand that Neo achieves, it's when he fully sacrifices himself or gives himself to a greater good, then this toxic energy of Agent Smith is gone for the moment.
So I'm hearing that you 6 or 7 years ago investigated some of the fan theories explaining the Matrix universe, and you really liked the fan theory that talked about no matter what level of consciousness that Neo had achieved, it was all about this sort of sacrifice to stop the spread, and that really, you found that to be like giving some completion or healing for you.
Yeah, and now as we're having this conversation, thank you for listening, Evan. It helped me realize that certain words we use can leave a long scar. And when I was younger, I walked away from a very beautiful romantic relationship, but then I realized I had a higher consciousness compared to when I was 20, that it's actually a sacrifice. I gave the sacrifice kind of like Buddha leaving his family in order to get this inner peace so that I can help more people work through this time.
So I'm hearing that in this conversation's brought to mind for you this notion of sacrifice, and that you had a deeply personal experience of sacrifice involving a romantic relationship that you walked away from, and that you're, I think, now seeming to understand this in a way that you're relating it to giving you some peace that's giving you the ability to help meet the demands of what's going on now.
Yes, and then it helps me see that the person that I did love, do love, and will always love was a bodhisattva. She chose her life path, and as painful as it was for both of us, and there was a love triangle, a third wheel, I call it, that they're also a bodhisattva, because in creating this chaotic situation in the long run, the entropy like it changes to where now I am more about piecework than the ego I had when I was younger.
So I'm hearing that you're using a very Mahayana framing of this, and you're conceptualizing the two people that you were involved in a triangle with, both as bodhisattvas who in some sense chose or allowed this situation to unfold the way that it did so that it could serve your development to work for peace.
Yes. Oh my God! I'm finally hearing myself instead of the karmic loop.
So you're excited because you feel heard,
Yes.
and to you that feels something like escaping from samsara.
Yes, thank you, Evan, because this is the training that Thich Nhat Hanh's temple does in Blue Cliff Monastery and in Plum Village and his other temples. But it was very isolating being there because it was away from the city and my parents. And at the same time, there was a paywall, a small fee, but it still felt like a paywall. But this is free listening. Thank you.
So I'm hearing that
Yeah, go
Do I
ahead and
still respond?
finish. That's go ahead and the final reflection.
So I'm hearing that you were in attendance at some of Thich Nhat Hanh's in-person places, and that he offers similar training on the art of conversation, but you felt a bit excluded at the time from that due to there being some monetary cost associated with that, and that you're really getting a kick out of these interactions here because it's sort of like the same thing but free.
Yes.
So you're up, Evan.
So quick question on the process here. So are we
Mhm.
still on the election, or are we just taking this wherever we want to go?
It's one, it's on the election, but you're free to talk about anything, take it wherever you want. So if there's something burning alive for you, you can go do that.
Okay. So I'll talk to Kelly this time. So I'm going to try and combine what Hawk was just talking about with my thoughts on the election, because this actually does seem like an interesting and fruitful path. So I also am a Buddhist of some description, I suppose you could say. And so I think that there is this connects to what I was talking about before. I'm not sure if you were here for that. I think you were, where I was talking about the fact that the different Memetic tribes now, or I should say the different political tribes, seem to have sacrificed their own core values for short-term power gains.
So I'm hearing that you want to approach your turn as sort of a synthesis between your previous statements and what Hawk was just talking about. And you started out by pointing out, or by reiterating the idea that the various political tribes, while they once had some kind of internal consistency in terms of value, they now are more or less pursuing only the value of winning, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And so, to come at this from a somewhat, like I mentioned, I'm also kind of a Buddhist here. And so I see a lot of people within the social circles that I associate with my practice there, doing things like taking glee in the fact that Trump has been diagnosed with COVID. And, these are also people mainly on the progressive left. And I find it quite a deep conflict of values for Buddhist leftists to take glee and satisfaction in the suffering of other beings. It goes completely against their stated core values. And I feel like that there's essentially no group that I'm a part of or familiar with, at least, except perhaps, I don't know, the Stoa here, which is seemed immune or even resistant to this transformation, where their core values are being sacrificed at the altar of political point scoring.
So I'm hearing that you've demonstrated an example of drastic incoherence where the groups that you're a part of, which would presumably identify as like progressive and or Buddhist people you would think would be very compassionate, are taking joy at the suffering of the president because of the fact that he's a pundit of their opposing tribe. And so they see it as a victory and they can't see it as the suffering of another conscious being.
Yeah, precisely. And so, man, I'm just going to go synthesis all the way here. So to tie this in with what Edwin was talking about during his latest round here, the empathy circles do seem like a potentially great solution to this sort of thing, though I mean, we'll have to see, right? I'm a bit of a pessimist in these sorts of times. But I do think that there's a sense in which we've lost sight of each other's common humanity, even in those groups and tribes where we claim to emphasize things like that. And that I do kind of think that these empathy circles might be a nice practice to try and gain some sort of, like Plato said, anamnesis, like an unforgetting of our shared humanity.
So I'm hearing you sort of connect that one remedy to this sort of incoherence and disconnection from values, maybe this practice of empathy circling, because it gives people an opportunity to I guess, sort of like reconnect with their, or like have their values reflected on them and sort of hear them anew in a sense, maybe?
Yeah, precisely. And I mean, I didn't spell this out explicitly, so you heard me great. But the sort of latent underlying thing that I was trying to get at is that it's at least my belief that shared humanity and respect for human life is a core value in just about every tribe, whether it's a conservative tribe, a liberal tribe, a socialist tribe, a capitalist tribe. Everybody claims to be maximizing human happiness, human values, and to reconnect as humans through a process like this is honestly seems incredibly valuable and like a really good first step towards healing some of the fractures that have happened over the past 20, 30 years.
So you are emphasizing that that this practice may help specifically bring to the fore the value of human life and the sort of shared, you didn't say it, but maybe sort of like sanctity or sacredness of humanity or something like that.
Yeah, and to help us rediscover that we all have that value at least in common.
I see. So that, yeah.
I feel heard.
Cool. Would I think I'd like to talk to Edwin.
Listening.
All right, so definitely a lot of interesting things have come up in the last few rounds, a lot of which I connected with. What Evan was saying about incoherence and the sort of political tribalism over, or like defeating coherence, internal coherence in terms of values. That's something that I've seen a lot in my cohorts, and I find it very hard to join any community because I always encounter this underlying politicism everywhere I go to seek like more basic like connection with people.
So what I'm hearing is you're seeing that sort of what Evan was saying, that different groups are sort of going for power, and it makes it difficult for you to join any group because it sounds like you want to sort of stay with your own integrity. And so you just have found it hard to kind of join any kind of a group because it turns into sort of a power thing, just going for the power without the values.
Yeah, well, I guess to clarify, it's not so much in terms of like going places and trying to connect with communities. It's not so much about power. It's more about this sense of in-group tribalism, sort of like there's this notion, for example, in progressive circles that like to be neutral on these issues that are so important to me is to be like my enemy, right? And so, well, if I want to, for example, let's say I want to go to a church and all the people in the church thought that if I disagree with them about abortion, then I'm evil, right? Well, how can I participate in this community? Like, even if I'm fine with it, like, let's say we are all like, oh, it's okay. Like, I'm like, it's okay that I don't agree with them about the abortion is just like a toy issue. But I'm saying there's this algorithm in the politicized mind that says if someone disagrees with you, you can't commune with them, right? And so then it means like, let's say I wanted to join a hula hoop club, and after we were finished hula hooping, someone mentions abortion, and now the hula hoop club is like at risk, right? And that's where I find that there's this major breakdown, for me at least.
Yeah, so for you, there's a real breakdown if you go into a group, like a progressive group, that if you're sort of neutral or you have other ideas, you're kind of just it's this in group. You're not part of the in group. You can get thrown out. And is that it? I don't know.
Even in, I mean, it's not. Yeah, it's. I think it's kind of just a. It's part of the. Cultural obsession with ideology. We think that we have to have shared ideology to be able to connect with other people.
Yeah, so you're saying it's kind of a bigger thing that the people just feel that if they have to have a shared ideology to connect with each other, and they can't see that people can have other ideas and still connect with each other.
Yeah. And I think that to some extent, that idea, the way I am thinking about it, somewhat is in tension with your idea. And also Evan voiced this, that empathy circling has like a remedying effect on a lot of the polarizing and tribalism, because even if you, so like in this practice, there's like this exchange where I say something and like I'm putting words in someone's mouth so that they can like understand what it's like. In a sense, they're enacting my view, so to speak, right? And that's powerful, but it doesn't change. We go back to our insulated worlds and our unshared realities and our separate Facebook news feeds. We are no longer, you know, there's just like this momentary effect of connectedness, but it doesn't have any power to unravel the ideological siloing and the ideological supremacy in which we're all like in this intersubjective agreement that all that matters is ideology. Sorry if that's too much.
Yeah, so you're seeing, so what you would see is sort of a problem or a shortcoming of the empathy circle that we're doing is that, you know, you're here, you're listening to each other, but then we go back to the rest of our lives and the rest of the world, and we're back to the situation as it is with all these in groups and so forth. So it really can't sort of change. You don't think it can change the larger dynamics.
Yeah, I think I see how it could be a part of the change, but I don't know how if it can alleviate. It's like planting the seed, I guess. And like in a couple generations, if hundreds of people start doing this all the time, and then if it's like a new way of being over time, eventually, you know, like the invention of democracy didn't happen with the Declaration of Independence. It was like a seed of an idea that ran its course, right? So in a sense, there's, I think, some path towards this as a remedy, but I don't see it as in the next 10 years, something that we can use. Like we need, like, if this democracy in the United States is like on the verge of collapse, I don't think empathy circling will have time to remedy it.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so you see this as something, what we're doing here, it can be a seed, you know, over, you know, many decades or whatever, it can kind of grow and into something. But for the immediate problem, you know, sort of it's not, it doesn't have enough impact to really affect kind of what's happening in the culture at the moment. It's, yeah. And that was the time too. It'll come around again if you want to add to it. I'll speak to Key then. Yeah, so I do think that this process can grow quickly, that it's a seed that can, it's sort of like Jack and the Beanstalk, right? You throw the seed out there, you know, it's like, oh, these are stupid seeds. And then you kind of wake up in the morning, it's this giant beanstalk that goes up into the land of the giants. So I do have kind of hope in the process and the mindset that's kind of like that.
So you're saying that you find that this particular practice is like planting seeds that grow into reaching into the whatever means the land of giants and the impact that that creates for the on both ends.
Yeah, that it can, it's like saying, you know, Kelly is saying, hey, it's going to take, you know, decades, generations or whatever, you know, for this seed to grow. I think the seed can grow quickly because the process can be quickly learned. And then, but we need activists who are willing to kind of put themselves out on the line, like occupy the Capitol Mall and demand, you know, that the Congress does empathy circles or occupy the park in front of the White House and say, we're not going until you take part in an empathy circle. So it's going to take, strategies like that. It's just not like, hey, please do empathy circles, please, that's not going to work, but it has to have an activism, I believe.
It has to have, so you mentioned that these kinds of practices are also like a form of activism when it comes to issues that matter to our shared humanity.
Yeah, we're going to need to have this. This is a movement and a mindset, just like Black Lives Matter is a movement, or the Proud Boys is a movement, or all these other movements. They have to have activists who are willing to kind of put themselves on the line, to get to the front lines. And that's what we've done with the empathy tent. It's not picked up a lot by the media, but there's 300 people on the right, 300 people on the left. They're battling it out, and there's like 4 or 5 of us in the empathy tent, kind of right there at the side, saying, "Hey, everybody, how about having an empathic dialogue?" And we're here to kind of hold up this, stand up for this value.
So when you mentioned being on the front lines, you're drawing a picture of people on both sides, a larger number on both sides, and whereas a empathy tent is in the middle, trying to have a empathic conversation between sides and tribes, so that sides and tribes are better understood.
Yeah, and I think if we take it to the powers of central powers, like the White House, like the Congress, that we can have that effect. And so, but in the meantime, we got to develop, train people like yourselves. That's why I'm so excited to be, doing this, because this is it takes a lot of grounding and training to kind of practice this. And then you got to kind of get organized and then take these actions. So that's kind of my dream or vision for this.
You see that it being a dream and a vision to be able to train people who are able to do this practice in a way that's grounded and really do the practice in a way that brings the whatever it is that is needed for our shared humanity, including peace.
That brings that mindset, that empathic, mutual listening mindset, brings it out into the culture. And, maybe it's like, the culture, everybody's been going along, we don't need this is fine. But it's sort of like a relationship, a dysfunctional relationship. It gets worse and worse and worse. And then it's like when things are about ready to blow up, then the couple says, oh, maybe we should go to therapy. They wait till the last minute. So maybe that'll happen. I don't know. You just hope before they shoot each other or something. But it's an opportunity, sometimes it just has to get so dysfunctional that before people are willing to really do something.
You see this as an opportunity to avoid the shooting of each other.
Yeah, that's close enough. I feel fully heard. Yeah, that was my 5 minutes. I'm going to take a bio break as soon as you start speaking. So select who you ever want to speak to.
Can I speak to Kelly?
Yes.
Thanks. Cool. So what's coming up for me is like deep gratitude for the practice, as I mentioned before, but I've also, speaking of this, I'd like to tie it back to this interesting relationship analogy that Edwin brought up with couples going to therapy so that they avoid dysfunctional, like really, really badly dysfunctional ways of working. And the reason I bring that up is because I tend to be I tend to enjoy communities where I'm able to express myself. And I can go on
So-
further after that.
So you expressed your gratitude for the practice and said that you were wanting to go deeper into the analogy about empathy circling being sort of like therapy, and that like it's necessary as couples dysfunction gets like really bad, it becomes more and more necessary, kind of.
Yes, and that's it, in fun ways. That's a I feel heard in that sense, but I also feel like there's this word of love and fear, both of them being more complicated than I initially really thought, and I believe that I'm still going to be learning about that for a long time, and how weird it can get, and how and how it takes a lot of effort to communicate with intention and with clarity and with love instead of fear.
So you brought up the distinction between love and fear. I guess it's kind of like core, I don't know if the word would be like energies or something, and that you're learning that it's really challenging to intentionally communicate and communicate from a place of love instead of fear.
Yeah, and I say that because recently I made the intention to understand freedom more, and to be honest, I haven't read enough into what that really means for an individual, for a city, for a country, for a nation state. And I relate that word to something that's brought up in the Stoa a few times, this word of sovereignty, and then relating that to relationships. Being in a relationship is something that I am still learning about, because I'm currently not in one, like officially, with full family understanding and all of that. But my family, of course, my parents are in a relationship, and of course, because they're married. And so when it comes to communicating with love, while also understanding what it means to be free or be sovereign, is something that is more complicated, and I'm still learning about.
So you sort of discussed some of your personal and like interpersonal sort of exploration with what it means, what freedom is, or maybe what it means and how it relates to relationships and the ideas of like sovereignty versus being in relationships or like in a loving interaction with someone. And that you find this like an area of for personal growth or like learning.
Yep, that's correct. Thank you for reflecting that. So in addition to that,
That was the time too, just
Oh,
to note.
great, that's it.
Yeah, we got 10 minutes left, so that's probably 2 rounds before we go to the full group. So, yeah.
Okay. I guess I'll talk to Evan. So I already went into one aspect of some of the discussion that was bringing things up for me. And there's another one that's perhaps more heavy or challenging that you brought up, which is this shared intersubjective reality about the sanctity or specialness or sacredness of human life above all other forms of life. that's a shared ideology that, as you said, seems to be so much fundamental, like assumed shared reality, that it's almost invisible. It's like a shared imaginary, if to use that lingo, although you did bring it up. And it's one that I've always I continuously struggle to find like a justification for, or like I find it incoherent, to be honest.
So I'm hearing you talking about the idea of the specialness or sanctity of humanity or human life in particular as a value that is so universally held in human belief systems that it's like the water we swim in and it's hard to point to, and that this value you have some level of uncomfort or disagreement with, or at least I think you said that you couldn't find a way to justify it.
Yeah. I find it confusing, or I just have never, so whenever I try to like go into it either with someone else or in my own thinking, it seems that people presume that because, as far as humans can tell, they have the most advanced form of self-reflective consciousness, that just in one way or another leads to the conclusion that we have some special title or entitlement or role to play in some like metaphysical sense. Like I've heard someone say that because humans on Earth might be the only conscious organisms, we have a duty to preserve human life. And that is, like they said, therefore, that's like one reason we should colonize space, to ensure that we can't be destroyed, right? And it's like, well, how is that any more true of humans than of like raccoons are just as miraculous as humans, less, except for the fact that we think we're special, right? So why shouldn't raccoons be preserved?
So
Yeah.
what I'm hearing you say here is, it sounds like you're having a hard time with the metric being used for determining that humans are this special thing that need to be preserved, and you're pointing out that it's almost cheating, that there's nothing actually so special about self-reflective consciousness of the type we can identify that makes us any more deserving of, you know, species survival on or off this planet than other species.
Yeah. And then I guess to take it to the transcendental extreme, I would say that whole story it misses this sense in which, like, you can conceive of life as a oneness, right? And in as much as we are okay, well, I felt heard. I was just going to try to bring it home.
So final reflection, it seems that you find this human chauvinistic view to be missing the transcendental oneness aspect of reality. All right, so I guess I go now. So I will speak, and maybe Hawk, could you be my listener? So as long as we're all riffing on each other here, I do, just for the record, want to point out a clarification that I agree with what Kelly was just saying, and that I was trying to point to this as a universal component of widely held human value systems, and not to say that that's my personally held belief.
So you're saying, you're reflecting to Kelly that, could you repeat that again, please?
Yeah, Kelly, it seems like maybe assumed that I was endorsing, that I was supporting the belief that human life is somehow uniquely sacred. And actually, what I was trying to say is that most human ethical systems claim that, and most people claim to operate according to ethical systems that claim that human life is sacred. But I'm clarifying that that's not actually really my belief.
Okay, so I hear you're saying that certain groups and tribes believe in their hierarchy and their sacredness over other tribes, whereas you, as individual Evan, says you don't fully agree with that belief.
Yeah, and you got that almost entirely perfect, but it's not just about tribes believing they're better than tribes. It's about the belief that humans are special compared to other forms of life. I don't actually hold that belief as a value myself.
Oh, okay, so I hear you're saying that the ego of humans believing they're better than other creatures, you don't hold that belief, and some Buddhists say that the human life is the hardest one to attain or something.
Yeah, so to tie that's right, and to tie that back in, because I mentioned I am a Buddhist also, and so maybe this makes me a heretical Buddhist, because I can't really get behind anything that separates us from the entire web of life and of reality and of cause and effect. Karma, right, just means action, cause and effect. And so I personally don't hold a belief that there's anything particularly special about a human life as opposed to any other part of the universe.
So I hear you're saying that from your Buddhist training that you don't believe that any life is more valuable than any other form of life. All life is sacred and equal.
Yeah, equal, at least in a sense of moral consideration, that, you know, I don't find the death of a human to be any more or less tragic than the death of a dolphin, for example.
So I hear you're saying that the death of a human is equivalent to the death of an animal or a tree or a plant or any other sentient being.
Yeah, that's basically what I'm saying, and so I do agree with, I think, what Kelly was expressing when he was speaking with me as the listener, that I have a deep discomfort around these ideas of humans being special. But that being said, I do also think that there is something powerful about leveraging the fact that most humans do believe that humans are special. And so that at least could provide a common ground for us to start a dialogue where we get out of this hyper polarized mess.
So I hear what you're saying is, and this is my brain interpreting, but it's close enough, is even though there is a toxic ego about so-called human superiority, there is the positive of great power, great responsibility, where humans feel a sense of obligation to care for the earth.
Yeah, and for other people as well. So even if it ultimately is a delusion that humans are special, we can leverage that delusion to maybe heal some of some of the rifts that separate us.
So what you're saying is that in the state of Mara and illusion and samsara, that humans, because they believe they're superior, there's still a beneficial good, like a greedy person that feeds the poor.
Yeah, and so just to reiterate, what I'm saying is that even if we're wrong, even if human value systems are wrong about the specialness of humanity, we can still start with our shared understanding of our common humanity as a place to start healing our culture.
So what I hear you're saying is that even though there is a distortion of ego, that it still can bring people together for a common purpose.
Right. That, yes, exactly. That the truth value of humans being special matters less in this moment than the utility of human belief that they are special for bringing us closer rather than driving us farther apart.
Could you repeat that again, please?
Yeah. So what I'm saying is that the truth value, whether the claim that humans are actually morally special is true or false, that doesn't matter. What matters is that enough people believe it, that we can leverage that belief to try and heal some of the divisions within humanity.
Okay, so what I hear you're saying is that whether a belief system or doctrine is correct or not, it's more important that people work together and create a more better world than the one they're born into.
Yeah, almost. And what I'm saying is specifically about the belief that people are special in a way that other animals aren't, that it doesn't matter if that belief is true. We can use the fact that people believe that in general to bring people closer together and heal.
Okay, so I hear you're saying that part of healing is leveraging the perception that humans may be better than animals to create more good. I noticed that my cats are very sensitive to like Buddhism and meditation. So
yeah, so I think yeah, I feel understood that's my point, to bring everybody together regardless of whether our beliefs are true.
okay, peace. We're out of time, but let me finish.
Yeah.
So you feel understood, and that the belief of working together can bring people together. Okay. Mhm.
I think we have a few, this looks like a second or so just for any final thoughts. So just want to thank everyone for taking part, also for taking part in the recording. Yeah. And we'll go to the full group in a second, I think, to do a bit of a debrief.
Had a great time listening to everybody. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. This is very healing for dating extreme introverts.
Maybe empathy circles for introverts. We'll have a special session. Yeah, because as an introvert, you don't get to, it's hard to sometimes speak. And here you're kind of like, you get a space to speak. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Edwin, have you
you go ahead.
connected with the street epistemology people?
I haven't. No, glad to do these with any group if you.
They have like a pretty large Discord server, if you know what that is, and
No.
they do like mass, like multi-room facilitated activities like on a regular basis. They probably would be really receptive to this mode. I don't know how I could maybe find a link. I don't know if you're on Discord, if you would, or
No,
I don't know how to.
Yeah, I haven't.
I don't know how to
Peter could connect you to them though. They've been on the Stoa.
Yeah, street epistemology. They're very focused on dialogue between polarized groups. That's like a big part of their whole concept.
So Discord is basically just a Facebook group. You go to the website, you go only to the Facebook group and not the distractions of Facebook. So it can lead to very cool conversations.
Well, hopefully some will come back.
Sorry, I just wanted to add that this experience here has actually crystallized something really nicely for me since we focused on the election. The exact problem that I had with the debate, which I turned off and discussed after about 10 minutes, was that it was pretty much the opposite of this.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Like as far opposite to this as you can while still having humans flapping their mouths in their general vicinity.
Right.
So this is really
it's
good.
Like, yeah, instead of someone talking and then the other person saying, here's what I heard you said, it's someone talking. I didn't watch the debates, but I'm assuming this is what happened. Someone talks and the other person says, here's what I was planning to say all along.
Well, and depending on your
now
metric,
that you said that, here's what I was planning to say.
Depending on your metric, there were between 250 and 1,200 interruptions that took place during the debate. That's how it's the opposite of this.
Yeah, I do think that the active listening is the most, I think that coupled with the act of saying it is really what's transformational, because you have to learn to notice the difference between what you're thinking about what they're saying, right? And then actually, like, how hard is it to just repeat what someone says, right? So that's like a huge part. And then the act of saying it is like this participatory, it's different, it's like reading poetry aloud is different than reading it silently, right? It's this act of saying it has this embodied effect. So I agree that this modality, it's like two really powerful things like brought together, and then there's like a somewhat social element. So I think it's pretty cool.
Key, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think that it depends on how it's facilitated, and it really comes from a training that also comes from a set of values that requires like the intention and clarity needed to say what is to be said in the active way of listening. So I really think that like developing the capability to do that is for anyone is beneficial.
Well, part of it is the training, which this is about, which I thought we were going to go back to the full group and get a bit of a debrief. So it's like Peter, oh, there he goes.
Oh, there we go.
So, all right.
Bye.
So we'll see you there.
See you there.
Hi, Maureen. It's good to see you.
Hi.
Now we're just waiting for everyone else to pop in. Gives it. Hey, Peter. So we I thought we would do like a 30-second debrief. I think there's not going to be time. So do you want to just call on people if anybody wants to give like a, a 30-second maximum, just just how was that for you, and just any comments, quick comments, just.
Maybe we can get like one person per group as
Okay,
well.
that would work.
Christian, you have your hand raised.
Oh, yeah. Hey guys. Yeah, I just wanted to say that it was refreshing to be able to speak without being rebuttal. One of the things I see with conversations mostly is that you say your opinion and then you get like a rebuttal. But with like the listening, the mirroring, it was nice to see like my words played back to me in a way that maybe I get to think differently about what I was experiencing. Thank you guys.
Natasha?
Hi. Generally, our discussion kind of revealed that most of our opinions on the subject were that the election itself is a symptom of a larger problem, part of which being media messaging kind of distorting information, which led us back to realizing that these kinds of empathy circle interactions, which we engage with internationally, are really beneficial and generative because the election issue itself is a global issue. And so as we come together globally in these very unique opportunities, we then engage in actual discussion with each other rather than imbibing media messaging. We push that aside and we get to connect with each other on a one-to-one basis and hear each other's stories and gain empathy with each other through expressing our bodily sensations. So this gives us the opportunity to recognize what common values we all hold, even though the media would like to pull our attention away into a certain polarity. These kinds of empathy circles help to center us in a common field of shared experience. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you for that pleasant music in the background. Someone else has your hand. Ben, you had your hand up.
And just hearing Christian now made me raise awareness. So I found this to be an interesting learning experience. And one of the things I noticed now is that I had a very strong desire a couple of times to actually rebut and like contradict people, be like, no, that's not what I meant, or that's not what I, like, or something like that. And only now I realize how important it is and how that kind of reveals a lot about how I usually have conversations. I wanted to share that.
I will share that hearing my own thoughts reflected back to me really made me think a lot about how I share my thoughts and how far less articulate I am in words than I am in my head. So that's a really fun place within myself to play with.
Yeah, Hawk.
Yeah, it was very healing. In school, when we first learned how to read, they were allowed to read out loud, but suddenly once they condition us to read silently, it becomes that permanent state where it's bad to talk in class or whatever. And so I think that's how people close off. And from that conditioning, that's how all this problem and psychosis happens. So this is very healing to really hear oneself. And especially with YouTube and the phones, I like to record myself and really listen to my thoughts. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is how I'm healing, rather than just thinking it and then it's stuck in my head. Yeah, so thank you.
I'll jump in. I'm so much more interested in listening and reflecting back than I am in hearing myself talk, which is a trend I'm noticing. And I'm so relieved, like my level of self-absorption is like chilling out, but like not forcing it. Like I'm not like, oh, I should be different. It's just kind of naturally subsiding. And like a real deep interest in other people is coming to the forefront. And I'm very hopeful about that.
So I wanted to share something that occurred to me towards the close of this, and as we were joining the main room. This was so valuable in encouraging people to actually share long form, more complex thoughts and feelings. It's a really nice antidote to the Twitterification and compression and sound biting that's been going on since, well, I don't know, maybe the advent of mass media, who knows, but to really encourage that direct person-to-person communication where you get 5 minutes to speak and you get a reflection, but nobody's contradicting you or jumping in. It's like the opposite of how the presidential debates work or work now. And it's just beautiful for that.
Yeah, and on that point, it felt like our conversation went somewhere, had a trajectory, and like, we got someplace, just as if you put like 4 people in a room who have high discernment and had a chat, but in a much more structured way, in a way that really worked out, your listening muscle. So let's do 1 or 2 more shares before we close out.
I noticed that spending most of the time listening had me in a mode when I was speaking where I was still empathizing with my listener, and that felt like a profound shift.
All right. So Edwin, any closing thoughts for us?
Yeah, I just put a link into the Empathy Circle site with some more information on what is the circle, why participate, and about the facilitator training. So this is what we're doing here, part of the training. We asked the people before they do our kind of deeper dive 4-session facilitator training that you take part in at least three empathy circles. So if you take part in 3, we'll be doing it this week, next week, and it'll be next, it's 4 Sundays that we're doing this. If you take part in 3 of these, then it'll prepare you if you're wanting to take the next session. I'm not sure if we're going to organize it through Stoa or make it another time, but so this is the first part in that training. In our group, we talked about sort of the vision to have this empathy, this mutual dialogue be a movement within society too, to once COVID is over, take our empathy tents, which we have to the Capitol Mall, to the White House, set up in front and sort of demand that the powers that be, take part in empathy circles. We really want to train up a core of people to be sort of empathy and dialogue activists. So yeah, so I look forward to taking part next week. It'll probably go a little smoother because the first hour or so, kind of learning this process, it's you feel a little anxious. Am I doing it right? But now you're sort of sinking into it. So Next week, it should be a little easier, and it just keeps getting easier as we go along. So that's it.
Great.
For me.
Again, if you missed it in the beginning, here's the spreadsheet we're using to keep track of attendance. There's 4 sessions in total. There's 3 more here at the Stoa and the Memetic Mediation Campfire. If you attend 3, you get a certificate of completion for the Stoa, and that makes you eligible to take Edwin's Empathy Circle training. And again, Edwin, thanks so much for coming to the Stoa and all the facilitators of Empathy Circles. That was great. And I do think it's important to have a facilitator in the room. It really adds to the experience. And one thing that excites me, like I think Emmanuel said, we're getting buff here in the Wisdom Gym, is combining some of these kind of interpersonal, intersubjective modalities like Empathy Circle, the Tyson's Flowing Through Unknowingness, or the Glass Bead game, Rhea Bach's collective presencing, and like we're gonna have circling here in the Wisdom Gym soon as well. So it's just kind of like combining all these because they're exercising different muscles, and I'm curious what's going to be the result of that. So that being said, to close out for upcoming announcements, I will take in Laura because she's going to be emceeing a new Sense Maker in Residence for the month of October.
Yeah, hey everyone. So tomorrow, starting tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern, we are going to have Daniel Gertz in the house. He's going to be here for each of the Mondays in October. He is one half of the infamous Hansi Freinacht, the author of the Listening Society. He's a sociologist and political philosopher who is going to take us down into the depths of metamodern art and spirituality and sexuality and all of those wonderful things. So if you want a deep dive on metamodernism, then come on out, join us.
Beautiful. That sounds delicious. We got a bunch of other Sense Maker residents coming up. Nora Bateson's coming up for November. We got some cool names too. ContraPoints is coming to the Stoa. I don't know if you know ContraPoints, but she's pretty awesome. You can check out the website, the Patreon, the Substack. Yeah, and again, everyone, thanks so much for coming to the Stoa today, and I hope to see you next week because I think it'll add some coherency if we all show up again. All right, everyone. Oh, look at that. That's Emmanuel has the official close. I love it. Now let's listen to some incongruent music.